So, welcome back to Boys on Film. My name is Phil. This is Sean with his new microphone. Look, it's poking in
my
the
new
shot
microphone
there.
is just so amazing.
It's tiny. It's like the size of your finger.
Just the head.
So today we're talking about Duran Duran, which is a Hollywood high. That's what they're calling it. Duran Duran, a Hollywood high. It's been described as a new music documentary. Oh, that's questionable. But it's a docu-concert. I would say yes, more docu-concert than a new music documentary as such. But anyway, it's directed by 3 award-winning industry veterans. That's what the press release says. Gavin Elder, who has worked on something from David Gilmour. He also works on Duran Duran's 5 Years. Vincent Adam Paul, who worked with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And George Scott, who worked on Buddy Holly Rave On. So, first of all, Sean, question for you. Are you a Duran Duran fan? I'm guessing yes.
Yeah, I am a Duran Duran fan, so I was actually looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. I've always liked them. Since 1981, I've liked them. I was a wee thing.
Oh my god.
Embryonic.
How old are you in 81? Are you just like
11. I shouldn't really say that. Yeah, you never ask a lady her age.
Alright, trash you then.
So I interviewed Nick Rhodes and John Taylor back in 2015 when their Paper Gods album came out, which I loved. But I've loved a lot of their albums since then, more so. The last one was Future Past, but I've loved them since the 80s. Some albums I've loved more than others. I've not always liked their choices, particularly with White Lines, which appears in this documentary.
Ooh,
is that controversial?
That sent cold shivers down my spine. That one.
That covers album I could have done without with, but I think that's the same. Apart from Susan the Banshees, a lot of other bands that do covers albums, I always switch off.
I tell you what I found interesting about this was I was really looking forward to it. Yeah, I love Duran Duran. I think they're great. You know, what a cornerstone of music globally, not just in the UK, but globally, they really set a tone and a voice for the 80s and into the 90s, but with less impact. I think what was interesting was the first 15 minutes is like talking heads. It's filmed at a Hotel Astor, which were apparently all of that footage was done a few months before the concert. And you get kind of a backstory into, there's some lads from Birmingham who found themselves in Los Angeles and how it was very different from New York and, how they kind of made it. And it was just so incredibly different, which LA is. That's fair.
Yeah, because I guess LA, like they say, is more rock and roll and New York is punk, isn't it? So
yeah, and I think that is a bit
more stylised maybe, which is Duran Duran really, isn't it? Quite stylised.
Yeah, it does. I do think that statement's a bit binary, but
yeah,
I'm going to roll with it. What you find is, they talk a lot about Capitol Records, they talk about the iconic Capitol Records building that's in Los Angeles, and they kind of start to tease this idea of being able to do something in front of the Capitol Records building, partly for Ukraine, and partly, as you say, to kind of tease their catalogue into something else. And I found the ratio of talking head to concert a bit wonky.
Yeah, because it left me feeling a little bit shortchanged. I don't want to say that because I love the band. Like I say, I've been a fan since the early days and I enjoyed it. But I kind of wanted more of the stuff at the beginning. But then as I got towards the end, I'm thinking, okay, well, probably there wasn't much to say other than what they said. Unless you're doing a documentary that is about their life or about their work in its entirety, as opposed to just that, which felt a little bit shoehorned. The charity thing, I think, is great. It's really great that they were supporting Ukraine. And I just think it just felt like a little bit of an album promo, which, again, is fine. It's great to have an album promo. But I wanted more of that stuff at the beginning, to be honest. I've seen so much concert footage of Duran Duran.
And I think that's where, I'm from Sheffield, just do what it says in the tin, right? So I did feel a little bit cheated because I was like, okay, I'm getting into this story arc. I'm finding some things out that I didn't know. And then suddenly we're on a rooftop with 5 blokes in white suits and we're off. And I was like, okay, so we're here. And then what I thought was going to happen is they'd sing, like A View to a Kill, which they open with, and then they cut back to like the Hotel Astor going, this is the story of A View to a Kill, isn't it amazing? He was in the Bond film, blah, 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 blah.
That's what I was expecting too.
So I was a bit like, ooh, they're going to splice, which then drew into question why there was 3 directors on this. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not gonna say it, but there was 3 directors on this, and I thought the concert staging was good.
It was good. I mean, a lot of drone footage as they're coming into Capitol Records, and obviously they were slightly lower on the roof, because they were on the rooftop of another building. So there was some great footage of ballet.
I'm not denying
that. It felt very, it felt kind of cozy, and there was a lot of people in the crowd, with their mobile phones, which was a bit of a bugbear of mine, but, it's a modern thing.
You're right. Maybe there's there was a lot of the talking head stuff where there's specialists in trying to capture that, get that mood, and then getting that concert vibe right. I get it. It just felt, I was a bit like, wow. My initial thought was, wow, there's 3 directors on this.
I'm guessing it's because they know these people, maybe they're friends, because obviously Gavin Elder's worked on Duran Duran 5 years, and
of course. I know you're going to qualify it. I'm just being a bit like...
No, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not being biased.
You'd be like, woo, wow.
That was a bit of a name drop, but when I interviewed Nick Rhodes and John Taylor, they were charming and really relatable and funny, and I really enjoyed that interview, and I enjoyed their company. So I really like them intellectually as well.
To be honest, though, Phil, I did think it was... What they were clever about was, they start with A View to a Kill... and then they bounce into Invisible, which was from the 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
You dance around, they go to Notorious, 86. Then, Pressure Off, 2015. They moved around their catalogue. White Lines. They did White Lines. We don't have to do any more on that. They were smart around basically covering what was 4 decades of music, which is basically what the celebration is. It's 4 decades of Duran Duran. And I think they were quite clever about that. So they didn't necessarily just do a real kind of mum crowd pleaser. They really did something that was, I think, quite interesting. So in a way, loved the gig, wanted more of the talking head, didn't do an encore. And I don't know, it was a lot of middle for me.
Yeah, it needed more energy.
Yeah, it needed energy, and it needed a bit more of a story arc.
Yeah.
Of where this concert sits, why, and it's not a lot. It's probably another 10 or 15 minutes of kind of content that would have just rounded this out. I mean, it's great. I mean, if you're a fan, it's great.
I want that mum-friendly documentary. Duran.
I want the mum-friendly documentary.
What would be in it, do you think?
More Simon Le Bon. Sometimes I whinge about, documentaries being a bit 101 and a bit kind of they've really taken us through the soup to nuts. It needed a bit more soup to nuts. It was almost the opposite end of some things I often complain about, which is you've kind of given me nothing. And I think it needed a bit more meat on the bones, really. Excuse that term because I know you're a vegan. Needed a bit more kind of a
bit more seitan
weight to kind of ground it. And I didn't get that. But
more soya protein.
I did enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I am with you. I can kind of see the plus points, probably more so. But I think we're both on the same page. I think we're both agreeing with each other on things to do with this documentary. I feel it was a bit of a shiny promo that could have had a bit more oomph. I mean, you've seen them live, right, Duran Duran?
I've seen them live. Yeah.
There's a lot of energy in that room, isn't there?
It's off the chart.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got an energy of... I got more of a studio feel presentation rather than... But then I guess there wasn't that many people there at this little mini gig.
What was it, 200, 250 maybe?
Yeah, I mean, max, I would say. But then
I guess there's a question, Phil, about that, which is that energy and rawness that you get from a Duran Duran gig.
Maybe that's not what they wanted, though.
There's the cat.
You should have loved it.
You should have really felt that in that, because you've got an intimate 250 people, intimate gig. It's on a rooftop. So I think actually maybe it could have felt a little more rough cut and a little more edgy to get that energy. I think it was very polished, and maybe some of that polish has eroded away at some of that energy.
Yeah, because I'm wondering how live this sound was. I'm guessing they did a lot of overdubs, perhaps a bit of editing, post-production, which is fine because it's... But again, that's what it felt like for me. It felt like a promo, an advert, as opposed to some rough, raw footage of a band that were...
And you're right, they've probably gone into
tour.
Post and gone, oh, Simon's voice is a bit wonky here, or there's wind blowing. You probably want a bit more of that energy. And
I've got to say, his voice, Simon's voice, does sound amazing now. When you compare it back to the early days, I think he's always had a great voice, but I think he's sounding really confident with his voice now. He delivers, I think, and I think we've all seen that Live Aid footage where he hits the wrong note, and he'll forever be haunted by that, I'm sure. But yeah, I think he really handles the notes well now. I think his voice is incredible.
I think, this is a lot of like, I guess if I took 2 steps backwards and wasn't a Duran Duran fan and I was hitting this cold, I'm trying to think how I would feel.
Yeah.
And maybe I'd be a bit like, I'm a bit disappointed. I don't know.
What do you think they were intending with the making of this docu-concert?
I think the arc would be LA, why LA, backstory. I think we get some of that.
So targeting the American market as opposed to everywhere else.
And then touching on something like we wanted to do, we use our voice for good. That's the Ukraine angle, which I find is a little bit kind of, yes, this is for Ukraine, but then it's kind of part. So there's a second bit, which I'm like, could have worked through that a bit more. Yeah. And then there is this 40 years of Duran Duran, and this is what we did, and it all knits together. So why LA, why Ukraine, why the music knits into this is why we're doing it. Now, I guess they're saying, well, you've worked it out because you've just said all that, Sean, but I don't know whether that hangs for somebody who's like, oh, I'm going to watch a documentary about Duran Duran, don't know a lot about them. I think they probably stumble into him and be a bit, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they've done Hunger Like the Wolf, I know that one.
If they were intended to do a celebration of 40 years, I think I wanted more than what they delivered with this.
If you want to do a celebration of 40 years, you get some external voices. So you get people in the industry saying, Duran Duran shaped who I was as an artist, band, lead, whoever, right? What they did allowed me to do what I do. That, I think, is that qualifying of the impact of Duran Duran over 40 years. That's missing.
Exactly, because I think they're a bigger band than what this documentary is saying. For me, it felt like they were just promoting the album and they were in a place to do it. And they had the people there that were willing to deliver something like this. So for me, it just felt, I'm not saying lazy, but it just felt a little bit meh. So what?
And you're actually really right on that point, because I'm going back to if I was just watching this, found it on whatever, Prime or Netflix.
Yeah.
You probably look at them going onto that stage on that roof and be like, oh yeah, they were big, weren't they? Once. I don't think it carries the gravitas and force that it should.
Yeah.
And that's unfair, actually. Given they're talking about 4 decades of music, I think that's actually unfair.
So we'll go to the star rating in a second, but first, question for you, Sean. What is your favourite Duran Duran track? Doesn't have to be a single.
It's White Lines. That's the hill I'm going to die on. What's yours, Phil?
I'm going with The Chauffeur.
Oh, okay.
Love it. My favourite Duran Duran track of all time.
Do you play that regularly?
And I love the video. Because let's not forget, they are great at making pop videos. Again,
there's something quite touching about that, because when they talk about Rio, they talk about the influence that LA had on them writing Rio. So I'm like, oh, it's nice, it knits together something. There just wasn't enough of that.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough of this is why, then a talking head, then a bit of music. Like, I don't know. Hey, I didn't direct the film. I didn't come up with the storyline. But I think there's something lacking that you and I are talking about.
Are we going to get a serious answer from the question I just gave you? Or was that your serious question?
Why can't I say White Lines?
No, you can. You're perfectly entitled to.
I mean, it's like that time that you said your favourite film was Matilda.
That wasn't. It was Cruella.
Cruella, same.
That's wrong, by the way, everyone watching at home. So, star rating then. Duran Duran, a Hollywood high.
I'm going to give it a 3.
Give you a high?
I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, I'm going for 3 as well.
And that sounds like a really meh, 3. But I am going to give it a 3. I think it had, again, like a broken record, we see a lot of documentaries, Phil, especially in the music world. We see ones that absolutely smash it out of the park. And this one is all right. Yeah, it's all right.
I think if I'd come across this in the listings, I would have watched it on TV.
What was that? You remember we saw that David Byrne with Spike Lee?
Yeah.
And he's on stage. Okay, that is someone on stage performing their music. but it just felt like edgy and interesting.
It's amazing.
And
it
was amazing, right? And you're
original.
Like, he's kind of doing the same thing. He's going through and saying, this is my back catalogue, but it like was visually stunning. It like was interesting. It kept your attention. You were like, this is why David Byrne is David Byrne. This is why the Talking Heads were the Talking Heads. You came away going, brilliant. I think there's a misstep here. Duran Duran need that moment. You could sit here and say, Sean, tell me your top 10 music documentaries. And I'd be like, okay, let me get started. Like, you think about all the things we've seen. Think about that amazing polystyrene documentary. Think about documentary about Sinead O'Connor. You think, like, they just all come to me like in a wave, and I'm like, wow. That documentary about Don Letts, like, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, this Duran Duran one isn't sitting. It's not got that caliber.
Great band, great back catalogue, great history. I mean,
the fans will still buy it, Phil, and they'll love it, and the fans will buy and love it, and you know, it's a great part of a wider Duran Duran collection. I just think about mass appeal.
Exactly. So 3 stars from both of us, and it is coming to UK digital download from the 6th of November.
3 stars. 3 stars. If you want me to do an ASMR video, Phil, I can do an ASMR video. I have this microphone.
Look at him showing off with that thing that's an inch high. Thank you, Sean, as always, and thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you're a Dranny, and don't at us. I'm sure we're going to get some.
Please at us.
We're okay.
I mean, we love it. You'll just get a poo emoji.